still relevant. Lucy is still in the game. All right, so this was a pretty spicy chapter. There was a lot to really come out of such a small amount of events. It was really two scenes, but I feel like I need first address the points that I've been making that looks like they're going to get made, but also the ones that I did claim didn't agree with me, but until they're otherwise decided upon and shown, I'm going to stick with it. So first being, I'm going to stick with my belief that Wendy is going to fight Laxus. Again, for those who are commenting in the prediction video, I never said she's going to win. I just said I think that she'd be able to push him to a degree, as well as she's the only one that has the ability to cancel out status effects, so she could potentially disenchant the hold that the White Mage has on Laxus. Keep that in mind. And then the other aspect is Lucy. I've been saying how powerful she is. You know, I've always believed that Lucy's been very strong. Well, not always, because obviously it can be like in chapter 1. No, since the Alvarez arc, for sure, I've noticed that she's obviously gotten way more competent. I mean, really, and since Grand Magic Games, she's really become her own kind of fighter, and then, you know, Stardress, she's able to accomplish so much more. And I think in terms of power, she's not Spriggan level, but she's within the vicinity. She's within sight, and it wouldn't surprise me as with this new Stardress, she was, in terms of like magical power level. I know someone's gonna be like, "Oh, she's not Spriggan level. She couldn't beat, you know, X character." I mean, it doesn't mean that she could beat them. She just would be able to compete with them in terms of level of magic they have. So with that, so let's get to the chapter itself, because the other one that I want to mention was a self theory, more of like questioning rather than I think this is a fact. So Natsu is fighting Gadgil. Super stoked about this fight. I was very happy with what we got already, because unlike if they just decided to fight any other chapter, it'd be like, well, Natsu and Gadgil, they're in the same guild, they could fight at any time. Well, no, that is true, but not the same way, because the reason that makes this more nostalgic is similar to when they initially fought back in the Phantom Lord arc. Gadgil and Natsu were enemies, and now there's, you know, friends, allies, sorta. They have a weird relationship with each other, but that is completely not the case right now because of the White Witch Toka. She's manipulating him, and he doesn't have that kind of, you know, aspect in his mind, his personality, that even if him and Natsu fought, he'd be like, well, he's still, you know, a member of the guild. I'm not gonna kill him. Whereas with Toka in control, like he would probably go for the kill. I'm hoping he at least gets a good push. I'm really hoping he gets a good push, and with that, there's an aspect with it between the two of them that I'm really gunning for. So again, we got like good choreography, good initial like trade of clashes. You know, Natsu goes to get a punch after their first initial kind of just like little bout and knocks it back. But really, Gadgil's like, I knew you would do something pretty simplistic like that at the start. Just go for a direct head-on assault. And the thing between Natsu and Gadgil is Natsu definitely has more firepower. Gadgil is more durable, and here you can see him using that to his advantage, because when he goes for the attack, Natsu goes for the punch, Gadgil doesn't. He instead goes for a block. He's just saying, I know where I outgun him. He ends up blocking, using that momentum to propel himself backwards into like a backflip, and then brings up his leg to make an Iron Dragon sword to try and, you know, slash at Natsu to take him out. And though this isn't, he didn't display like a new feat of power. I mean, he did, but it's sort of not really. The level of range, though, like with his slash, just that, you know, that razor wind that's made by blades, when it's just like that, so sharp and like heavy that it creates that thin layer of the pressurized wind that will cut through stuff. It's actually fun because it's consistent with his, back when he initially showed those iron scales that increased his strength to the point where, you know, he's creating shockwaves with his attacks. But I mean, I guess I can say, like, he did get some form of, like, commendable, like, jump in strength. I'm wondering if it is enhanced by the White Witch, or if this is just how powerful he is right now, because obviously now he's keeping up with Natsu. And though he is strong, he hasn't really been Natsu level since the Alvarez arc, because Natsu was one of the people that could take on a member of the Spriggan 12 by himself. Gadgil was able to, but by, you know, using the Dragon Slayer ability to intake power to force a Dragon Force, which was smart on him, definitely intelligent, but it was more of like a, a makeshift kind of way, similar to obviously how like Natsu beat Jalal. He wasn't Jalal level, but he was able to figure out a way to close the gap. Whereas now, like, it wouldn't surprise me if he's as strong, and then after dodging it, Natsu goes in for a headbutt. And that was really sick because we got a nice callback, too. We got a really nice callback immediately after. But also that Gajo, like, grimace. Is it a grimace? Like, what would that be? I guess just like a sharp-toothed grin? Is there a name for that? I'm trying to think right off the top of my head, but anyway, not important. They go in, they land attacks with each other. He knocks Natsu back. He brings up, the comment about, his scales being made of iron, which it was a funny thing because that was back before Dragon Force was a thing. So I feel like after, because he doesn't, it's funny because they're iron scales, but they're not Dragon Force. It's literally just him manipulating, the iron that he does with his weapons to make scales that is a boost. Well, not somehow being Dragon Force. I feel like that was just I didn't, for Mishima's point, I didn't have Dragon Force in mind at the time. So maybe it's a little different. But, he's just talking about the durability of his iron, whereas Natsu, talks about the power of his fire, looking back towards when that initially happened after they, they clashed roars. Natsu had all those metal shards in him. Gajo was hyping up his iron, and then Natsu brings up his fire, literally melts the metal shards in his body. So he's literally got wounds with molten steel and iron just kind of dripping out, which is honestly one of the most metal things I think Natsu's ever done, just because of like the way you describe it. It's literally, you have open wounds with molten metal coming out of them. But then Gajo ends up, it's like, all right, time to take up a notch. Goes Iron Shadow Dragon mode, and with adding, a high level of mobility and maneuverability to a character who normally is extremely durable, and that being his asset, it just adds an extra layer to Gajo, whereas Natsu, he's definitely struggling with him a bit, but he knows that he needs to up it, because it's similar to one of those tropes when it's a trope that people like. Their characters are fighting, they're not gonna up their game until they feel like it's necessary. Gajo going to Iron Shadow Dragon mode and then busting out a secret art, which I wish they would make the one from the filler arc canon when he does the drill back with it. I hate that Daphne arc, but that drill was really cool, and just giving him a second secret art was cool. But doing his Iron God sword, I love his thing too. Karma Demon. What's Natsu's is Flame Lotus, but Karma Demon just sounds so much cooler. I also really love that because we have Dragon Slayers, God Slayers, and Demon Slayers. But Gajo has an attack that has all three in the title. He's Dragon Slayer's secret technique, Karma Demon, Iron God Sword. Obviously, it doesn't have any God or Demon Sling in it, but I just always thought that was a really funny thing in his moveset. But Natsu being pushed, he ends up doing something we haven't seen in a long time. And I don't believe it's been since his fight with Margear that he's gone Lightning Flame Dragon mode. And it's crazy. Also, I love seeing Gajo in his Iron Shadow Dragon mode of just like the whited out eyes and then that kind of like brush stroke design that he has on him for the shadows. But Natsu going Lightning Flame Dragon mode it was such a refreshing and nostalgic feeling because it had been so long, and I always felt like Natsu should have used Lightning Flame Dragon mode against some of the members of Alvarez that were an opponent to at least be noticed, but not Spriggan level. And then, use Fire Dragon King mode on the Spriggan, just because it'd be like, you look at some of the characters, like, we didn't get a lot of the Spriggan level characters, like, direct, like, their minions. We got a couple of them, like, we got, what was it, like, well, I would say, like, Luna and Hayes, I swear, I feel like I'm gonna, no, it's Juliet and Hayes, with them, they were, they ended up being swords, but they were still like the direct like underlings of Eileen. Whereas it should have been something like that, like any of those characters. They're still opponents, maybe given some of the lesser characters, or not, Lightning Flame Dragon mode. So it's like, oh yeah, these guys can fight with Lightning Flame Dragon mode now. So that's still pretty strong, but obviously he's not going to go all out against them. But just like seeing that, and it's so cool because they were the hybrid characters, like, first brought in, and then obviously we got Future Rogue, and then, we got God Serena. But they were the two that I think people really enjoyed the most just because they're the coolest. Lightning Flame and Iron Shadow. I mean, White Shadow's still really cool, but he doesn't have, they don't have that, like, extra, like, craziness that Gajo gets with, like, the eyes, and it's the shadows coming off him with the metallic body. It's just so cool looking. And it's going to be nice to see them clash. We saw a little bit of it back in Tartarus while they were fighting Tora Fuzar and Tempesta, but Now we're actually going to get to see it. And this is one of the things I wanted to bring up, because Natsu was like, he hasn't used Lightning Flame Dragon in a long time, and I feel like he only did it because Gajeel used his hybrid mode, and Natsu just felt like matching that. And this could be a time to where we see them go all out, or at least give Gajeel something, because it was noted Gajeel, he's the only one that can't go to Dragon Force willingly. Obviously, with Cobra and Laxus, their Dragon Force is a much weaker and not nearly as good with Lacrima based. And then Sting and Rogue, it's underknown if they can use it normally. Well, they can use the Lacrima base, but Lacrima based Dragon Force is not very good. It gives a boost, but it's not even close to even like, Forced Dragon Force. But I know some people have argued with me. It's like, it's not Dragon Force. And the Dragon Force is literally just making yourself more dragon-like. Laxus got scales and Cobra had freaking dragon arms. But anyway, I'm hoping that Natsu will go up to either Dragon Force. Dragon Force I feel like is excessive. I don't know if he will. Or at least go into Fire Dragon King mode. And then we see Gajeel just be like, I can match that Iron Dragon King mode. Or maybe like replace King with something. Maybe an Emperor or a Tsar or something just crazy cool like that. Maybe just switch it to a different type of ruler to match it. Just something like, or Tyrant. I mean, could you imagine Iron Dragon Tyrant mode? That would be so cool. And it would just add that extra metal level to Gajeel. But I'm hoping something like that, because I'm really happy with some of these characters getting spotlight. Because that was one of the things I really was looking forward to with, Toka controlling these characters. Is we'd be able to get the main characters, the main cast still doing their own main cast stuff, but we wouldn't have to introduce new characters. We could use the old ones, and it wouldn't just be normal old ones. It's characters that we already like, but we don't get to see as much of because we already have the core cast, and bringing in more might end up oversaturating, the group, because you have to then accommodate for how many extra characters you bring. Whereas now Gajeel and Natsu, you got nostalgic, you have love for Gajeel, you're just getting like good choreography and good action scenes. I love that. And with Panther Lily, I actually laughed. I didn't think about it legitimately while I was reading the chapter earlier, because I look at it in the Japanese version before I read the official one, because I can't hold my fanboying back. But Panther Lily versus Happy, and what's funny is Happy has a little bit of combat experience, because I haven't seen anything that contradicts Happy's spinoff to being not canon. He doesn't do a lot of battling in it, but he does a tiny bit to enough to where he would have a degree of like at least being able to dodge an armed fighter. But I just saw Panther Lily look at Natsu earlier, and I was really confused what it was, and I completely forgot about his fear of lightning and thunder. So he got so nervous when he saw Natsu go into Lightning Flame Dragon mode, and then Happy just comes up with a fish, knocks his ass out, and it was. I really thought it was like a time was like, oh, whoa, wow, Happy's getting something. But it makes sense to the series, which I loved even more just because it was funny like that. And it gave a good chuckle in between like a serious, epic, intense fight and then leading up to a really good one. So the first part, Mirror Jane, for some reason, is going up against Virgo. I feel like it should have been Virgo versus Lisana, because that seems like the matchup that would be. Like, Virgo isn't really much of a fighter. She's got some good support and good setup with like her ability to create like, pitfalls. Like, that's obviously not like a great ability, but it's useful enough that you'd be able to add a level of, terrain difficulty to your opponent. But I was very happy because I actually mentioned earlier in this week, I don't remember if it was in a video. I know in my stream I talked about like, Elfman is one of those characters who always feels like he's going to be relevant in an arc, but he never ends up being it. He always just seems like, sweet, Elfman is going to do something. He's had some relevancy, but it felt kind of like, looking back at like Alvarez, it seemed like he was going to be, get a fight, maybe not a 1v1 with a Spriggan, but something. Obviously, he fought Accio, but it was pretty much off panel entirely, so it doesn't really matter. But, him trading blows with Natsu at the start of the arc, it was like, oh, cool, he's going to be strong enough to at least do something. It didn't really happen. It was really unfortunate. Or like he did some stuff in that Sirius Island, but he got outed pretty quick, when he lost to Rusty Rose. But here we not only got him going against Leo, which is really cool because Leo, he's the strongest of the 12 celestial spirits, which is weird. They never count the 13th, but we know the 13th is there, but the 13th is kind of a weird wild card. And then if you take into the Eclipse Spirit arc, it's more of like a protector kind of just like watch for the Celestial Spirit King. I don't know, it's kind of weird. I like that Hiroshima brought that in because we for some reason got a 13th constellation, or is that no Zodiac constellation, right? I can't remember entirely what they're called, but And then he brought that in, bring it into something that's tied into the series, but it's like, it's weird that he never did a whole lot with that. I don't know. It's not important, but it's like, he should be at some point, Lucy's eventually going to get all the keys, and she's going to need that. But Elfman getting a new form makes me so happy, because he's not only, because you had Mira Jane as a demon. I think this was just a little bit of a nod. Mira Jane is a demon while he's on her cat form, and you have Elfman who's in a lion form, while it being a little nod to, I feel like it's a decent nod to Megiddo, who was one of the great demon lords of Ravemaster, Hero Mishima series before Fairy Tail, which is so nice to think about. I love like little callbacks like that, even when it's not as direct and obvious. Just that big, no pupil eye, like jacked humanoid lion is just really cool. Megiddo is just such a fun character. It's good to see Elfman, repping that right now. And then the last bit, because I've talked about, again, I've mentioned earlier, like I've hyped up Lucy. I legitimately see Lucy as very powerful. She's not like obviously someone like even Gray, to where it's like Gray, even though he's more of a weapons and ranged fighter, he's very, he still can fight like melee. Whereas Lucy she can do some ranged combat and somewhat with her whip, but for the most part, she's not heavy combat orientated. She's more of like how she can mix and match her powers as well as her spirits. But in terms of just sheer, like, if you measured, like, how much magic in him, I feel like she could measure up pretty well to, like, someone like Gray. And maybe close enough to, in just terms of, like, a level of, the quantity of magic, but not, like, to what she can dish out, like, in raw attacks, the level of damage she can take. But this gave her something shiny and new. So she had her star dress before. A lot of the characters displayed new aspects to abilities they had, and got some form of new upgrade. Lucy didn't really get anything special yet. Like Urza got her new sword, and like trained with Dragon Slayer abilities, as well as integrating her other swords and weapons together with it, and armor rather, mainly armor based. But and then you had Wendy with her being able to fully give people Dragon Slayer temporary buffs. And Lucy, this is a cool one, because I didn't think, this is one I legitimately didn't think about, because my whole idea with her is that eventually she would get this, she'd convince the Celestial Spirit King, because, how close she is to Celestial Spirits, to make her own, to make a key for him, because we know he has a method of being able to get summoned by breaking a golden key that the user is close to, but he should still have the ability to make his own key. I feel like that's within his power, and it'd be really cool to see how they're made after so long into the series. But her combining two keys is again, it's a power I didn't personally think of. There's actually a fan art that I see all the time that I just feel like would be a really cool thing for Lucy, where she's got all 12 keys like hovering around her, and then she's got the 13th key in her hand. Something like that, where it just be like a really cool power up for her. But here we see that she's still like figuring stuff out. We don't know if Layla or Anna could use Stardress. Even look at characters like Angel. She was S-class level, but she could only summon one gold key spirit and a silver one at the same time, where in the Grand Magic Games, Lucy is able to summon 2 gold keys. And now she's able to do 2+, she's able to pull on a double Stardress. Because we don't know, like, was she the first person to do Stardress? This is only, her mother probably, and Anna, potentially. But I feel like she's the first one to combine 2 together in this. And it's so cool to see, because Lucy she gets associated way too much with being a lewd fan service character, which obviously she's gonna get. She's a busty babe, and Wendy is more portrayed than often as, cute and silly, whereas Urza she gets fan service, but she's much more of a serious character because of her personality, unless Jalal's around. Whereas Lucy, she's just fun in a lot of ways, and she does get looted, but I'm perfectly fine with that because of how much she's able to stay relevant in the story. She's constantly still pulling her own weight. She's still advancing. She's still growing. She's still figuring stuff out for herself. And like, look at this. Even a year later, and they beat Xerath and Acnologia, she doesn't know what's going to come next. She's still advancing her capabilities in case something happens. And it's going to be so cool. Like, imagine at the end if she's able to combine all the keys within herself and pretty much become the Celestial Spirit Queen that so many people speculate she'll be. That's going to be a lot of fun. Stoked for that. So happy for Lucy. Now, again, this is getting close to proving my claim for Lucy being extremely powerful. I mean, people know she's strong, but I 100% believe in terms of, like, if If she was in the Alvarez kingdom, I feel like Zeref at this point would look at her and be like, I think you could be the the 13th member of this brigand. You're pretty actually useful. Okay. But I'm going to stick with Wendy fighting Laxus until otherwise, proven. I mean, Urza versus Jalal just seems too obvious. I feel like that one just has to happen. There's a lot of reasoning behind it other than just, oh yeah, Jalal and Urza, they have a past. It's like, no, there's a lot of emotional weight behind that. But anyway, tell me in the comment section below what you thought about this chapter. I loved it. I was really happy for it. We got good action, we got some good comedy, and we got some good displays of a character that's been here since the start. And when you go back and look at Lucy, like back at the beginning when she was very selfish, she was very out for herself. She was, much more like exploiting people into figuring out like how she could come out on top. And she could even like force a close like a spirit to like leave. She didn't get her first one until Galuna Island, and now look at her. She's potentially the strongest celestial spirit wizard to ever exist. Because unless we think Anna, unless we have at least some proof that Anna is able to do a double star dress like this, it's crazy. There was some stuff in the anime where Layla was able to hold Capricorn, Cancer, and Aquarius. I think it was those three. I know it was 3 golden spirits at the same time, which is crazy for Layla. Like obviously she was strong, but 3 at the same time, golden gates. But and she didn't seem like exhausted about it all. But I don't think that's in the canon. I think that's just filler, unless unless you remember something that I don't. But Anna, obviously we know Anna was like hyped up, but we don't know either of them if they did star dress, and even less likely if either of them ever did a double star dress. So like I said, comment below. Lucy, hype as hell. Love the girl. She's definitely my favorite female lead in Shonen for sure. Like she just fits in so many good categories, and she's come so far. But other than that, like I said, comment below. I really appreciate if you friend the like button, subscribe button, check out my other videos, and thanks to everyone who's already subscribed, and thank you all for listening. Bye.